This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
We are back here with Dr. Lisa Johnson, and you may have heard of her. My Relationship with Oprah, My Own Evolution of Restorative Justice. Yeah, her upcoming memoirs. Her story continues today. We're going to chat with her more and talk to her about really what's happening. And I'm excited to talk because in our previous podcast, you described your decision. And you were younger, and you said, "Hey, I want to become a counselor, right?" And then, unfortunately, or fortunately, right, because everyone goes through something, and this also made you who you were, and you're very open to sharing it. She was assaulted in college, and the men who hurt her were sent to prison. But you took that experience and continued your quest to help others now recover from this trauma. So, we're going to talk about this experience leading you to your work in the child sexual abuse program when your team all got the opportunity to be out there in the audience and appear on the Oprah Winfrey Show. That was in 1986. And well, in a way, ironically, the two of them, right? Oprah and yourself, you both found a new purpose in helping others. And you chose to go the family therapist route. She focused on her shows and philanthropic work. So, there are some parallels here. And I want to discuss, some of them and also the differences in your path. But again, commend you on walking this road here and guiding so many down this difficult road by doing what you do and working people help them overcome so much.
Thank you. Well, I think that when I was there at the time on the Oprah Winfrey Show, I was I was 24 years old. I was excited about my career. I knew where I was going. I'd felt this level of success that the men who had assaulted me had gone to prison, and I was taking my experience to help others, first in the child sexual abuse program. And then at the same agency, I worked at the domestic violence program while I was working on my master's degree to become a family therapist. And as as you may imagine, I had my own patterns of learning how to cope with trauma and survival and emotional distress from my childhood that I was bringing forward to me. And one thing was my mother was a great model for using education to overcome adversity and to combat addiction. And she also became a counselor. She became a drug and alcohol counselor. But then when I was 18 years old, right before the assault, my mom relapsed, and I was the one who discovered that she was drinking, and as a result, she lost her job
Uh,
as a therapist. Yeah, because I was the one who ended up kind of blowing her cover or finding her hidden bottles and that kind of stuff, and she ended up not working for a long time. But then while I was going to court, she was at my side or in the courtroom and observing and focusing on helping victims of sexual assault as well. So, um, but some of those negative patterns of addiction, of drinking, also there was cannabis use with my siblings when I was growing up, all my older sisters. In the 70s, people were smoking a lot of pot, and I was wanting to do whatever my sisters were doing. And so I was following their lead and being, getting in. That was my entry into social connection. And so learning how to I had this resource of using alcohol, food, and cannabis to manage my emotional reaction while I was going through college, writing papers and going through all these legal things. And cannabis has been found to be really effective in helping people manage PTSD. So I was self-medicating with cannabis to help me function as a student. But as a result, using cannabis, using food, using alcohol, guess what happens? I gained enough weight that I was over 300 pounds by the time I got married in 1988. And had a really, I was struggling with feeling self-acceptance at over 300 pounds. And then I had this experience where Oprah appeared, and I think I told you in the last episode, she came to do the keynote address at our fundraiser at Des Plaines Valley Community Center, and she talked about how uncomfortable it was to fit in her dress at the Oscars. And so here I was a couple years later at my wedding, having this really negative experience of I ordered a dress that they said would come in my size. It came, I was size 26. It came in a size 18. I was humiliated. They had to put panels in the side of my wedding dress so that I could wear it on my wedding day. And I was humiliated, but I felt
Oh,
like I was full. But at the same time, that feeling of being obese, right? And then as I went through college and graduate school, again, eating and to protect myself and to continue to get on with life, I gained and gained and gained until I was over 300 pounds.
wow. Now, at the same time, I know this is a little conflicting for you, right? Because you kind of felt betrayed, right, over this whole Oprah's dress story, right? Because she was, right, one of the most respected, we can say, quote, fat people out there because, she used the words herself and this weight conscious world. So at the same time now, all of a sudden you see her. Tell me how this affected you. Ah,
So not only the dress, but then next thing I know, here I am. I started working as a therapist in an agency that specialized in family treatment of incest. And one of my first clients was a seven, not wasn't never even took this client. And one of the referrals that came to me was a 17-year-old who was anorexic.
oh, wow.
And I felt this conflict within me. How do I help this person who's anorexic to overcome their disease when here I am taking up the chair? My whole body would fill the sides of the office chair that I was sitting in. And so I went to a 12-step program and Overeaters Anonymous. And I started working that 12-step program as a source of recovery. And it was that place where I started thinking about restorative justice, both in my own life as well as in the work that I was doing. I think my recovery in the 12-step program gave me more skills as a family therapist,
Really?
as helping people heal and overcome, because in my
Yeah.
experience, my mother's addiction affected me. And I became a family therapist because I thought if I could change the family, I could change how addiction is. I didn't think addiction was the problem. I thought it was the family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so when I went to work with family therapy, I saw people using substances to suppress their feelings, to tolerate intolerable behavior, which is what allows sexual abuse, physical abuse, violence, the dysfunctional family systems to continue in a dysfunctional way. So I started to see how in my own recovery and learning how to take responsibility for my life and to use the steps in steps 4 through 9, you're making amends, you're noticing the places where you need to do things differently and where you're hurting other people. And I learned for myself, it's not a terribly scary thing to say to somebody, oops, I made a mistake. I really hurt your feelings. And here's what I'm going to do to change in order to stop that from happening. That's for me, making amends is the first step of the restorative justice process that I didn't even know that word existed yet, in the 80s. The book that I'm referencing and thinking about in terms of restorative justice wasn't written back then. I'm sure the ideas were there, but it's more, we're embracing these ideas more and more as we go along historically.
Wow. Well, there's a lot. I know we're kind of bouncing back, but I want to hear, more about this betrayal with Oprah, and I want to talk about the time she brought all the fat onto the stage, right? I mean, there's a lot here.
That's one of the things that led me into the 12-step program was
Okay.
watching Oprah right across the stage. She had, find out later if you read about her, she gained weight to get that role in The Color Purple. So, the fact that people criticize her for being heavy was a big deal, right? And so she went to Optifast and lost 60 pounds and paraded across the stage with 60 pounds of lard in a wagon. Some people may remember this episode. I remember watching it and I really felt betrayed because I felt she represented, like fat serenity is what they call it in 12-step programs, but loving yourself, being healthy at any size. And I think Oprah did and still does represent the ability to be healthy at any size. You can be large and be healthy. You can also be small and be unhealthy. It's, but it really isn't about, for me, recovery was about learning how to love myself and accept myself and be healthy. And the 12-step program gave me permission to do that. So when I was over 300 pounds, I don't know how much over 300 pounds I was because when Oprah paraded across the stage, I called a weight loss doctor and I said, what should I do? And I went in and met with them. The weight loss doctor scale only went up to 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Over 300 pounds I was because I was
Yeah.
over that. And so I don't know how much weight I've lost. I just know that
Yeah.
a number isn't going to measure my recovery, right? And so 60 pounds of lard is a very measurable thing. But you know what? That's not who I am, right? And when I let go of what the doctor said is you can't, you know how to diet. You've had all this experience with your mom being her binge partner and her diet partner growing up. I was on Dr. Atkins, I was on Weight Watchers, I was doing liquid protein diets with my mom when I was in middle school. I was on every diet my mother was on, and every time she went off the diet, we'd go out to eat together. I was my mom's little diet partner. So I knew how to diet and I knew how to binge, but I needed support with the staying on track. So he said, you should go to a 12-step program. It's free. And I said, yes, free works for me. And I dedicated myself. I worked really hard. I learned how to run the meetings and I learned how to get a sponsor and I learned how to work the steps. And I started applying those concepts in my day-to-day life. And after learning how to not eat for emotional reasons, eliminated the first 50 pounds. And that was pretty amazing. I didn't stop myself from eating anything in particular. I just put boundaries around the kinds of things I ate. Like if I wanted ice cream, I could go have ice cream, but I would walk the grocery store and get the ice cream and come back. I wasn't going to, have it in the house, those kinds of things. So I learned how to change my habits so that I would accept my body the way it was. And I was also learning that I didn't have to use food to push feelings down anymore because I had this program of recovery to use for the feelings.
Wow. Oh my goodness. This is deep. I didn't know all this. This is fascinating to listen to and how really all this, could work on someone's mind and what it does to them and how everybody needs their, and goes through their own path in life, right? During this journey, how hard it must be, but we all have our own struggles. And this 12-step program, you mentioned really, you said it's not just weight loss, it's really emotional, physical, spiritual recovery. How long did that take to start, losing the weight? Just curious.
So in that first, I joined Overeaters Anonymous in
Yeah.
1980. And in that first year or so, the first 50 pounds came off.
Wow.
Working with a sponsor, talking about my food, talking
Yeah.
about my working on my character defects, making amends to people that I felt I had harmed, including myself in my own body. Another thing that happened at that time, though, was was in graduate school and becoming a family therapist. And I broke my leg off right above my ankle. This isn't in any of the stuff. I broke my leg off right above my ankle, which limited my mobility in the middle of uh, January, February of 1988, before my wedding day. And so that limited mobility really interfered for the rest of my life and some of my ability to do physical activity. However, when I broke my ankle, the doctor said if you weren't so heavy, this wouldn't be a complicated surgery. And I took that to heart. And when even with a cast, with a non-walking cast, I started watching exercise videos on TV and doing the stuff that you could do without standing up. First of all, because sitting around on the couch is so boring for 8 weeks, I couldn't put any weight on my ankle. But also because that I had started to think about how my relationship with my body and my food was becoming these years. I no longer wanted to protect myself from connection. I
Wow.
was getting married, I was safe, I was no longer going to court over these people who assaulted me, and I was helping people overcome their own trauma. OA helped me to be a better therapist because I knew
Mm-hmm.
how to hold myself accountable and help other people learn how to do that for themselves and love themselves into health.
Got it.
So that restorative justice concept for me started in the 12-step program. And then when I got a job working in the agency with sexual abuse, I had a couple of cases where we had sex offenders. I had two situations where I had a successful reunification between my client, a child who had been sexually abused, and the father who had sexually abused them, because the father had gone through adequate therapy to take complete responsibility for the harm that he had done to his children, and guarantee, with everybody knowing and understanding why this happened and how it was going to be different, a reunification with their children and a healthy relationship. So that restorative justice I learned how to put into place in these families' lives for somebody who's sexually abused their child. It was amazing to see. Talk about bravery for a person to take responsibility for the harm they do to their kid. But I became really good at helping people learn how to take responsibility for the harm they did to others at
Wow.
that job. And if you can think about what a powerful, powerful
Wow.
skill that is to help
Wow.
somebody heal and recover and restore the damage to the relationship.
Wow. Oh my
Potent.
goodness. Well, you also, with what you've been through, and obviously you're helping so many people. I want to know, though, a little bit more about the Overeaters Anonymous, and how would you say that really impacted your career?
Well, I think that it impacted my career by making me a better therapist. And it also they say, you got to keep your own channel clean so that you can be available for your spirit to move through you, right? And it created my concept of a higher power. I call it the healing powers of the universe that we call by many names, because I don't believe anybody has all the right answers. I think we all have a sense, but I think that there is a healing power that exists in everything. And I think we participate in that process, that the life flow, the challenge and the support, the movement, the energy that we move through life is my concept of a higher power. And having faith in something bigger than myself gives me the sense that I really am kind of helping to channel the energy in a direction that's going to be for positive outcomes, right? So, yeah.
Mm. Also, if you don't mind sharing with the audience, really, let's talk again about more about, restorative justice and, this recovery program and really how it influenced, yeah, the ideas about it to everyone.
So in the 12-step program, the first three steps are about learning that I'm not responsible for, in my case, I'm not responsible for having this disease, and I'm really not responsible for how other people react to me, but I am responsible for myself and my own actions, right? So I'm responsible not for the conditions that I've been given, but I am responsible for what I do with it. First three steps are about that. Steps 4 through 9 are looking at those places where I've fallen short of my own ideals, of what I'm capable of, and where I've done harm to others, and what I need to do differently in order to stop harming other people, and then to go make amends and make it right with those people once I've done my own work to change the conditions that allowed me to do harm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then steps 10, 11, 12 are about keeping that channel clean, staying connected with your higher power, taking responsibility in the moment when things happen, and being, more conscious and aware. So the 12-step programs, it's the same for Overeaters Anonymous as it is for Alcoholics Anonymous, Al-Anon, Debtors Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. The steps are all the same. The substances
Okay.
or what the addiction or the whatever addictive process is the same. One of the things I like about the Narcotics Anonymous program is they say, I'm powerless over my addiction and my life has become unmanageable. And
Wow.
then the step two is there's a power greater than me that can restore me to sanity. And I choose number three to use that power. So
Yep.
yes, I'm responsible for having the disease, but I am responsible for using the power I have to change it. Right. So you can see how it's a transformation process there. I'm learning how to use the energy that exists in the world to make the world the way I want it to be, rather than just being a victim to circumstances.
Wow. All right. Thank you for that. And still, there's, a lot to your story, to your journey that I know you're going to continue to share with us. We still have some more time. What else did you want to detail about this?
So the next question that was in our list is, how was making
Your
amends and restored
ideas. Mm-hmm.
October 5th, 1980? So remember the
Of
gas station
1990, right?
in 1980, the gas station was robbed, and I was in Overeaters Anonymous. I was still living in Illinois. I had an apartment, a garden apartment that has, just a door off the side that and I didn't realize it was October 5th, 1990 that day until I was on the phone with one of my friends from OA, who got to witness this with me. And thank goodness, talk about having support. I mean, she was right there with me, and the doorbell. So this guy knocks on the door and he comes in, and he said that he was James Hill's lawyer, and
Wow.
he wanted to know if I was willing to sign a petition to the court to have him released from prison early, that he had completed 10 years of his 30-year sentence, and he had gone to barber school and wanted to know if I was willing to support his early release. And I really, really, like, as you can imagine, was stunned,
Mm-hmm.
completely stunned that this person was in my kitchen, in my apartment, asking me to, I guess, forgive James Hill for assaulting me.
Ah,
Him ever making amends or saying I'm sorry or doing any restorative justicey stuff that I'm doing at work. I mean, I'm doing
yeah.
this is my job at work with fathers who've assaulted their kids. And this guy comes in, he's like, hey, do you want to sign a letter to the judge? And I was, as you can imagine, appalled. And I
Of
still,
course.
I don't know if he knew that it was the anniversary of the day I was assaulted, or if that was a strategy, or if it was an oversight or a coincidence, but it was powerful for me. And what I said to him was, has he had sex offender treatment? And the guy said, no. Well, you know what? Guess what? Sex offender treatment doesn't happen in our justice system. People don't, if you go to prison for being a sex offender, you don't get sex offender treatment.
What?
That we don't live in a restorative justice system. We live in a punitive
Punitive.
justice.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And and him going to jail, has he been punished enough is the question. Not what has he done to correct the mistakes
Yep.
that caused this in the first place, either in his life, which would be lovely. If that guy would have come to me and said, what, you are the person who was assaulted.
Yep.
What would you like to see this young man do to change his life? I would have said, here is a list of places that he can go to get treatment for what he did to me, and be able to do the same thing for me
Yeah.
that I men do with their children that they had assaulted. Take responsibility, say I'm sorry, acknowledge the impact and the responsibility for the damage that they had done to their child and their family and their community. It was powerful stuff to see these people restore their relationship and take responsibility for the harm they had done to these people that loved them and who they loved. I didn't love James Hill. James Hill didn't love me. That's not the point. This wasn't personal with the assault wasn't personal to me. But I was working with people who care about each other enough to take responsibility for the harm they did. And I was learning how to do that in my own 12-step program. And so I would love to see somebody like James Hill do that. Take responsibility for the harm you've done, take ownership of it, do what you need to do to change the conditions within you, and then fix the harm that you've done out in the community to the people you've done harm. That's where the restorative justice like passion came for me with this situation, because I took what happened to me and tried to make a difference in the world. I would like to see the people who hurt me do the same thing.
Oh my goodness. Wow. That's just, oh my goodness. And this was, oh my goodness. I want to pull 19, wow. Wow. Well, we still got 4 more minutes left in your show. And for those that don't know, I mean, this is a powerful story and we've talked a lot about it. And I feel that all that you do, let me ask, I mean, you are working with people, and what does it feel like to help them in a sense, after what you've been through? I mean, each day of your job, I know work is hard at it, but how gratifying is this that you're able to help people that are in these types of situations?
There were a couple people at when I was working at, it was Midwest Family Resources, and I got that job because my undergrad professor and my first clinical supervisor, Mary Jo Barrett, wrote a book together on how on
Wow.
systemic treatment of incest. And so having a framework for how to help people at work as well as my own was really helpful too. That's where taking responsibility for the facts, the awareness, the responsibility for the action and the impact that it's had on other people. That's where that framework of how do you help a person make an amends? How do you help somebody make an apology? Well, they have to know all those things. They have to say it happened, they knew it
Hmm.
happened, they are responsible for what happened, and that they were responsible for the impact of their actions.
Got it.
So
All right.
that helping people learn how to own that is a healing process for everybody in the family
Sure
system.
is.
With one guy at one point that he had molested all of his children except for the one. He had 5 kids. One had cerebral palsy. He hadn't molested that one.
Ah,
But all the had reported that they had been molested by dad. Dad had said, "Don't tell anybody else, and I'll only do this with you." And as they became teenagers, they all revealed. And he was brought to my office from Child
yeah.
Protective saying that the family wanted him to get care. And so when I asked him his history, he regressed to a 3-year-old in my office.
Oh,
And I had to use the hypnotic suggestion bringing me out of the hypnosis that the police had used to me with me in order to bring him out of this trance-like state where he was re-experiencing the abuse he experienced as a 3-year-old. And as he came out of that episode, he said, "Wow, now I know what I did to my children."
yeah.
Helping somebody come to the realization that they can understand on an emotional level the impact of the damage they did to their children makes it more likely that they're not going to try to do that again. And it was really powerful to bring that man
Wow.
to a place where he have compassion for people he had done harm to.
Well, thank you for sharing this, for being here. How can we contact you, please?
Well, you can visit my website to see the website, the videos, the past videos, and my relationship with Oprah.com. And you can also contact me for counseling at LisaJJohnsonLMFT.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this. And great speaking with you as always. Thank you for shedding light on this. And best of luck with the memoirs. We'll talk more about it next time. Enjoy your day, sweetheart.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.